Imagine living in a world where a single, politely lifted hat is riskier than a swipe on Tinderware. One mistimed glance across a fog-choked street can brand you ruined for life. Welcome to Victorian London. Stick around, and by the end of this story, you'll know why courtship back then felt half romance novel, half courtroom drama. Quick pause if you love history, served with a dash of scandal. Tap that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. You blink awake in 1855, 22 years old, technically an adult, but legally treated like delicate cargo. Cold grit from last night's coal fire still pinches your throat. Outside, the Thames exhales its sour river breath while carriage wheels rattle over slick cobblestones. Every sound is a reminder that time is money and your family's money is running out. Your mother appears first, petticoats swishing like irritated swans, eyes scanning you for flaws the way a banker inspects counterfeit notes. "Remember," she whispers, tightening the curtains. "By winter, you must be engaged." Translation: marry, or become the relative everyone whispers about while passing the potatoes. You pull back the threadbare coverlet and feel December's damp already seeping through the floorboards. Somewhere downstairs, a maid stokes the kitchen range, iron tongs clanging like a warning bell. The smell of weak chicory coffee curls upward, chased by the sharper scent of horse manure drifting in through an open sash window. London is awake and judging. The pressure is mathematical. Suitable men, minus available dowries, equals an equation that rarely favours a woman without a titled uncle or a secret inheritance. Fail to solve it, and you're destined for the eternal guest bedroom, a spinster shadow at every christening and funeral. Succeed, and you trade your father's roof for your husband's rule still, a dependent, just transferred. Somewhere outside, bells ring 8 o'clock. That gives you 3 hours before the Weatherby family's eldest son arrives for an informal call, which, everyone knows, is an audition civilized by porcelain teacups. You've never met him, but rumors say he came back from India, changed. Changed how? Nobody elaborates, but the word hangs in the hallway like damp laundry. Your heart quickens. You're still in your nightgown, hair unpinned, ribs blissfully free. But daydreams end here. Because the first battle, getting dressed for survival, the maid enters armed with linen, laces and bone. You raise your arms, the nightgown falls, puddling around bare ankles already prickling in the draught. First layer, a chemi-soft, white, easily washed because everything above it rarely will be. Next, woolen stockings rolled up and gartered just below the knee. Even these feel like duties, not choices. Now comes the corset. 2 slabs of whalebone scaffolding connected by 32 eyelets. You grip the bedpost while the maid laces from waist to shoulder blades, pulling in a rhythmic tug-pause tug that feels like a clock winding tighter. At 7 inches of reduction, your ribs creak. At 8, your breath shortens to polite sips. She knots the cord, tucks it, and steps back. You test a coffin, ladylike, nothing that would move tea in a cup. Petticoat 1, petticoat 2, quilted underskirt that traps heat like a greenhouse. Then the cage crinolinea hoop skirt of spring steel that promises fashionable bell-shaped geometry while threatening to tip you like bad cargo if you turn too quickly. Over it slides 15 pounds of silk and velvet trimmed in braid. Every ounce whispers you are worth carrying, even if your spine disagrees. Your mother appears with the finishing weapons. Kid, leather boots whose toes are narrow as political opinions, and gloves that will prevent both warmth and any tactile warning should a candle slip too near that flammable skirt. The mirror shows a delicacy. Your lungs file an injury report. Doctors debate whether tight lacing displaces organsum, cite autopsies where livers are dented like old tin. Others blame only female frailty. Fainting couches flourish in drawing rooms, equal parts furniture and medical equipment. You privately vow not to swoon today. Every blackout is gossip ammunition. Descending the stairs becomes choreography. Left hand gathers fabric, right hand trails the banister so hoops don't ricochet. Halfway down, you catch the smell of camphor and coal smoke evidence. The parlor fire is already lit for your impending inspection. Your heart thumps hard against the corset's barrier, sounding exactly like a watch muffled in a pocket. Present, but owned by someone else. A carriage rattles to a halt outside. Wheels crunch frost. Male voices murmur. The Weatherbys are early. You inhale as deeply as the whalebone allows. The real suffocation, you remind yourself, is about to start downstairs in the parlor. Your slippers whisper across polished parquet as you enter the parlor, mother hovering one step behind like an anxious stage manager. Father stands by the mantel, posture rigid enough to imply solvency. Arranged on the sofa precisely, almost theatrically sit the Weatherbys. Mr. Weatherby's silver-topped cane, Mrs. Weatherby's smile frozen halfway to approval, and between them, their eldest, Thomas. Custom dictates silence until you are introduced. So you fold gloved hands, letting the left conceal the fraying seam on the right. Father speaks your name. You drop a curtsy calibrated to the inch. No handshake, of course. Your father hasn't offered one. Thomas returns only the shallowest bow. The economy of the gesture announces breeding and caution in equal measure. Conversation opens with approved trivia. The Mild Winter, the latest waltz by Johann Strauss, where the gas street lamps outshine whale, oil, politics, religion, even rail stock price or quarantine topics. Eye contact must be measured. You ration it like sugar 3 seconds on Thomas, 2 on the carpet, repeat. Courtship as arithmetic. The maid arrives bearing a silver tray. Porcelain rings like fragile bells. At the threshold, Thomas rises, holding the door so she may pass unjostled. He even thanks Herbie name, Mari evidence he bothered learning it. Mother's fan hesitates, a subtle sign she's cataloguing merits. Cups circulate, cream clouds swirl. Then catastrophe in miniature. Mary's hand trembles. A saucer skitters, explodes against the hearth. The crash slices polite, murmurings into silence. Thomas jolts right shoulder, lurching as though bracing for gunfire, then composes himself and kneels, gathering shards. Merely china, no harm, he murmurs, voice steady, yet pitched for you alone. But you've already clocked the pulse thrumming at his temple. Rumours said India changed him. Glimpsing this reflex, you believe it. Mrs. Weatherby's gaze knifes between broken porcelain and her son's stiff back. Father coughs authority into the air, waves Mary off before gossip draws blood, yet the twitch lingers in collective memory. The visit must span exactly 32 minutes. At minute 21, safe topics exhaust themselves. At minute 27, Mrs. Weatherby praises the geraniums. At minute 30, Thomas's eyes meet yours for an unpermitted 4-second eternity. Somewhere inside your corset, something answers. Finally farewells, still no handshake clock has ruled. Coats, hats, carriage doors, sunlight fracturing through iron ribs and 10. 0 panes of glass turns the Crystal Palace into a floating cathedral, equal parts greenhouse and gossip mill. Your boots click along a mosaic floor of Minton tiles. Beside you walks Thomas, a precise 9 inches away the distance etiquette manuals describe as safe for reputation. Flanking you both is Aunt Judith, today's chaperone, brandishing her parasol like a sabre that can fend off impropriety. Aunt keeps the pace slow enough for scrutiny. Everyone here bankers' wives fanning themselves beneath colossal palms. Clerks on their half-day holiday. Governesses shepherding sticky-fingered charges. Understands what a paired promenade means. First semi-public outing equals a soft launch engagement. A misstep isn't just personal, it's practically a press release. Thomas offers you his arm as you approach the cast-iron stair to the upper gallery. Aunt Judith nods. Permission granted. His sleeve is warm. Through the fabric you feel muscle tense before each cannon salute from the replica Crimean mortar on display. His India twitch, tamed for the parlour, hasn't entirely left him. Halfway up, your names ripple outward like ponderings. A curate you met once nudges a barrister's wife. The wife's maid will later report to your dressmaker. By dusk, your milliner on Regent Street will be remarking upon the Weatherby girl's colour returning. The Victorian information highway is whisper, pen, carriage, repeat and every node can edit the story. At the crystal fountain, spray jewelling the air, Thomas leans slightly closer, voice low. The glass reminds me of Calcutta's heat, he says. Aunt Judith pretends fascination with a Venus flytrap, but tilts an ear. Calcutta, one word, and the rumour machine grinds. Some will say he still carries fever. Others will raise eyebrows at native attachments. A few will wonder whether malaria thins the blood or the morals. You counter with practiced brightness. London's fog will cool you before summer. Translation for any eavesdropper. He is healthy. You are optimistic. Carry on. His answering smile flickers gratitude or exhaustion. You can't tell. Down the gallery, a flash of burgundy silk. Mrs. Weatherby conveniently meeting you. Her glance inventories. Your posture, your complexion, whether Thomas's arm circles too far around your waist. Satisfied, she drifts off, already scripting tonight's dinner report. A week later, the house feels hijacked by whispers. You hover outside father's study, as if it were a courtroom. Inside, male voices volley across cigar haze Thomas's measured baritone. Father's accountant, sharp questions. A quill scratches numbers. £200 per annum from the India stipend. Yes, invested at 4%. Your dowry, meanwhile, is itemised like livestock linen, silver, the £800 grandmother left for a match of quality. You belong to the ledger, long before you belong to the man. Mother shepherds you to the morning room to keep your nerves warm. She pours chocolate, but the china cup might as well be a handcuff. Any property you sip from today vanishes at I do. Coverture will fold you into your husband's legal skin, erasing yours. You imagine yourself as ink diluted in a larger bottle still present, but no longer read. The study door opens. 2 signatures later, the men emerge with polite victory smoothed over their faces. Father's glance tells you the bargain is struck. Thomas approaches, producing a velvet box no larger than a macaroon. Inside glows a single pearl circled by tiny diamonds. Etiquette manuals preach that pearls symbolise untouched, virtue white, flawless and easily cracked. You slip it on. It fits without resizing. An unsettling sign of premeditation. 6 months until the ceremony, Father announces. But timelines in Victorian London can be elastic. Everyone knows engagements shorten when reputations of bodies are at risk. A hurried date might conceal a missed monthly bleed, a rash misdiagnosed as heat spots, or memories too violent to be endured alone. Your own match seems timely yet respectable, which only leaves the secrets you don't know to fear. That evening, Mrs. Weatherby arrives uninvited, ostensibly to admire the ring. Her eyes, however, linger on your waistline, on Thomas's handshake, on the tremor that still ghosts his shoulder when the footman drops a coal scuttle. Over sherry, she assures Mother that her son is robust, merely tired of city damp. The sentence lands like a bandage applied before anyone admits to bleeding. Midnight. You sit at your vanity, pearl catching candlelight, wondering which of you it truly advertises, the girl or the guarantee. Outside, carriage wheels whisper away, carrying the final copies of the contract to Weatherby lawyers. The ink is still wet when you realise no clause protects your diary, your wages from piano lessons, even the future children you've yet to imagine. The bells have barely stopped clanging before you're folded into a barouche trimmed with white silk, the word wife settling on your shoulders like a second invisible veil. Guests cheer. Rice rattles against the glass. Inside, Silence Thomas studies your gloved hands, as though they're legal documents still needing signatures. Every etiquette book says, newlyweds converse little. Anticipation is eloquence. In truth, neither of you knows what to say. At the townhouse, the staff lines the hall like witnesses to an execution. Rose petal trails. A sugared cake in the dining room. Candles everywhere, flames tall. Accusatory. Your mother presses a sachet of lavender into your palm. For nerves. Aunt Judith Sterner slips you a folded note. Close eyes. Breathe deeply. Comply. Pain is brief if you relax. Her looped script feels like a doctor's prescription, lacking dosage. Upstairs, Maud the lady's maid loosens 300 pearl-tipped pins, talking fast to fill the dread. Some ladies swear by a glass of port, some by prayer, and her Grace of Marlborough? She bit a wooden spoon. She lowers her voice. But my cousin at St. Thomas's Hospital says chloroform does the trick just 2 whiffs, and you wake a mother 9 months later. You picture lying motionless while surgeons circle. The newspaper debates still ring. Is anaesthetized childbirth unchristian or simply modern? Corset gone, you meet your reflection. Red collar marks, skin pale, eyes wide. Somewhere downstairs, Thomas is uncorking champagne, yet he carries quinine tablets in a silver vial, Calcutta souvenir, still rattling in his pocket. Malaria can lie dormant, Dr. Snow warned in his lecture. A fever could bloom in you long after the wedding flowers fade. Another spectre, childbed fever, the invisible killer that claims 1 in 2 city mothers. No midwife mentions that during fittings. Door hinges groan. Thomas enters, uncertain smile stitched to his face. He offers the champagne. Your hand trembles, spills a comet of bubbles onto the carpet. For a moment, both of you laugh too loudly, like children startling themselves. The intimacy that follows is clumsy, earnest, narrated by half-remembered hymns about duty and multiplication. Pleasure is scarcely a rumour. Success is measured in silence, and an unstained sheet at dawn. You wake in grey light, body aching yet intact. Pearl ring cool against your cheek. Thomas sleeps fitfully, forehead damp, the colonial twitch tugging his shoulder. 3 weeks after the wedding, love looks less like roses and more like arithmetic. You sit at a walnut escritoire, balancing 4 ledgers, coal, candles, laundry, liveried staff. 52 servants' wages must align with Thomas's India dividend and father's dowry interest, or gossip will sniff blood. The butler hovers, hat in hand, awaiting orders that will ripple through the household like telegraph clicks. You sign, seal, dispatch Victorian project management in corseted form. Yet small rebellions sprout in the cracks. At afternoon tea, you hide Aurora Leigh behind the Book of Common Prayer, letting Elizabeth Barrett Browning whisper feminist heresies past the silver teapot. You draft column essays for the Ladies' Gazette, under a male pen name each paragraph, a pinhole in coverture's dark canvas. At dawn, while London fog still masks propriety, you stride into the kitchen garden wearing borrowed tweed trousers, mud on hems, pulse hammering. Outlawed comfort feels like oxygen. Thomas notices, but does not forbid. Nights find him thrashing beneath brocade quilts, breath hitching at phantom gunfire. You learn to wake him with a candle's glow rather than a touch. Once grabbed your wrist as if it were a bayonet. Over cocoa you coax fragments, monsoon rot, fevered privates, a boy named Singh who never made it home. Victorian medicine has no word for PTSD, so you invent remedies. Lavender on pillows, gentle questions, the lullaby your nurse sang when cholera stalked the city. By dawn his shoulders unclench. In return, he signs the household allowance, without counting shillings, a silent treaty acknowledging your invisible labour. Society, of course, sees only the polished surface. At Lady Hawthorne's dinner you play the devoted wife, quoting Shakespeare, laughing on cue. Pearls shimmer at your throat. The same fragile virtue badge boot under the tablecloth, your boot nudges Thomas's, steadying him when a servant drops a tray with a crash too reminiscent of musket volley. Guests note your harmony and predict a prodigious brood within the year. No one imagines the nightly negotiations, the secrets swapped like contraband letters. You wonder whether these private pacts constitute freedom or merely a prettier cage. Each tick of the mantle clock counts down to your next great test. Motherhood, scandal, or financial tremor, whichever arrives first. So after corsets, contracts, and candle-lit PTSD triage, you've seen the whole Victorian operating system for love. Quick recap. Pre-game required a dowry larger than some start-up seed rounds. Every social interaction came with a rulebook thicker than a Kindle's worth of dating advice. The wedding night was Russian roulette with health, inheritance, and basic anatomy. Marriage turned into a lifelong merger. She handled logistics and optics. He fought private wars no empire admitted existed. What should we salvage and what deserves the rubbish heap? Keep the deliberation. Lose the domination. Victorians moved at the speed of hand-delivered letters, which forced long, revealing conversations. today, wid, pings can't compete with a month of crafted prose. But pacing shouldn't require property forfeiture, organ-crushing underwear, or legal invisibility. Imagine pairing their intentional courtship with your right to keep your bank account and lungs intact. Keep the community, ditch the committee. Back then, every glance got audited by family, neighbours, and Mrs. Grundy 2 doors down. The upside: abusers found it harder to isolate partners. The downside: rumour ruled more ruthlessly than any algorithm. Maybe modern love needs fewer trolls in the comments and more trusted elders who will ask, are they treating you well? Keep the clarity. Skip the pearl-plated purity test. Victorians labelled relationship suitor, fiancé, spouso. Everyone knew the stage and stakes. Swipe culture's talking limbo could benefit from that transparency. But purity myths that equated worth with an unstained sheet, hard pass. Finally, keep the storytelling. The slow burn of serialized letters, the coded fan flutter, the clandestine garden walk. They turned romance into narrative, not notification. Your next first date might feel richer if you view it as chapter 1, not disposable content. All told, Victorian love was a duet of devotion and danger. It demanded patience, offered structure, but extracted a toll in autonomy and health. The real lesson isn't to trade your DMs for a dowry. It's to ask how much intention you're willing to invest before you swipe again. So would you surrender instant messaging for handwritten vows if it promised deeper commitment? Or would you rather keep your lungs corset-free and your property your own? Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you'd survive Victorian dating. The camera fades back in after a faux end screen, as though viewers stumbled into a secret exhibit. You're alone in the moonlit halls of the Victoria, Albert Museum, shoes clicking on marble that echoes like distant carriage wheels. Glass cases glow with artifacts we just dissected. A pearl engagement ring, its gold band rubbed thin by generations. A mother-of-pearl calling card case that once telegraphed marital eligibility. A corset so tiny it looks child-size proof that breath and bone were negotiable. You pause at a display of sepia letters, tied in blue ribbon. The handwriting slants with urgency, words like ardour, fear, and forever bleeding through brittle paper. A placard notes, recovered from an attic fire, 1894, author unknown. As you lean closer, a security light flickers, casting shadows that make the mannequin bride seem to inhale. For a heartbeat, you swear the faint scent of coal smoke lingers, as if London's fog has seeped through time. Your phone buzzes a modern intrusion and the screen shows an app notification. 4 new likes. You pocket it, suddenly aware how light that device feels compared to the whalebone prison behind the glass. 1 tap. 0 consequences, or so it seems. The contrast hits harder here, among relics that once decided futures. A curator's footsteps approach, soft as a cat's, she whispers. They're packing up the Victorian wing next month, making room for the Edwardians' motorcars, suffragettes' whole new rulebook. Her keys jingle like distant wedding bells. Different corset, different cage, she adds, locking the case. You ask if anyone ever identified the letter writer. She smiles, shakes her head. We only found a final line. Meet me at dawn or the ship sails without us. No record if either made it aboard. She dims the lights, leaving you with unanswered love hanging in the air like an unfinished chord. As you exit into the crisp night, the city hums buses, neon, late-night kebab shops yet somewhere. A church clock still tolls midnight exactly as it did in 1855. Time moves on, rules mutate, but the stakes of a beating heart remain stubbornly Victorian. Choose well or risk everything. Keys turn, gates clang shut, and you're left on the pavement pondering the next exhibit. Flappers trading corsets for cigarettes, telegrams for telephones, restrained vows for roaring jazz. But that, dear traveller, is another love story waiting in the wings. Rain freckles the pavement as you walk home, museum shadows still clinging to your coat. London buses hiss past, neon reflecting off slick cobblestone's modern carriage lamps in a city that refuses to forget its ghosts. When you reach your flat, you flick on a desk lamp, and its warm cone of light feels like a safe house from the fog outside. Yet your thoughts are back with that ribbon-bound bundle, the final plea. Meet me at dawn, or the ship sails without us. Curiosity nips harder than the chill. You open your laptop digital archaeology in pyjama sand, start cross-referencing 1,894 passenger manifests, South Coast departure ports, even local newspaper elopement notices. Hundreds of names scroll by. Clara, Gwendolyn, Beatrice, Charles, Edwin, Thomas. Each entry a life that might have pivoted on a single missed morning. You pause on one manifest from Southampton, April 3rd, 1,894. Two adjoining blank lines. Name withheld by request. Unusual. A notation reads, Fare settled by third party. Could that be them? Did they board? Did love outrun the rulebook? Your screen feels suddenly Victorian, glowing, mysterious, half a confession. A ping. New email. The subject line makes your pulse skip. Attic fire letters. It's from the curator. Time. Stamped 12, 4 a.m. You click. Thought you'd want to know, it begins. We located a faint watermark on the stationery Havers, Sons, Calcutta office. Appears our anonymous author bought paper abroad, likely after 1,885. If you're digging, start with returnees from the Raj. Full scans attached. Good luck. You download the files. The letters bloom on screen, sepia ink against digital white. One margin bears a tiny sketch two birds in flight over waves. A code? A doodle scratch during restless waiting? You zoom in until pixels blur, half expecting the birds to flap free. Lightning flickers outside. And for a breath the room is illuminated, the way camera flash freezes a moment. Your desk piled with Victorian etiquette books, an empty teacup, phone buzzing with indistinct notifications. Past, present, and your own heart triangulate like points on an unseen map. You whisper, did they make it? No answer. Only the rain and the soft hum of your hard drive today's steam engine chugging toward answers. The cursor blinks, inviting the next search term. Havers, Sons shipping records? Type. Enter. Loading. Somewhere beyond the glass, Big Ben tolls a single deliberate note. The screen finally coughs up a brittle PDF of outbound passengers PO line, April 1,894. You scroll, pulse drumming a Morse code your smartwatch can't decode. Columns of serif type. March downward occupation. Cabin class. Fare. Then, like a name whispered through coal fog. Weatherby, T-birth 42, B paid in guineas. Weatherby, the same surname that hosted tea in our parlor back in section 3. The man whose hand twitched when porcelain shattered. You zoom farther. Beside his entry sits an M- where profession should be, as though even bureaucracy refused to label him. 2 rows below. Whitworth, Seabirth 42. Affair settled, no baggage recorded. No title, no chaperone, just an uppercase C daring the age to guess. Berths 42A and 42 adjacent bunks on a ship bound for Bombay. Did they flee together? Or did one chase the other across oceans stitched by telegraph wire and rumour? Your cursor hovers, uncertain which rabbit hole to follow first. A pop-up from the curator interrupts. Found something odd in the watermark letters, EO, inside a tiny compass rose. Ever seen that? You haven't, but you type back a promise to dig. Outside, rain calms to a hush, the city holding its breath like a corseted bride at the altar. You pull a shawl tighter Victorian cosplay by accident and open the East India Company pension registry. A sputter of scanned ink reveals Thomas Weatherby, Lieutenant, medically discharged 1,892, tremors, night terrors. PTSD, 2 decades before anyone coined the term. His pension stopped March 30th, 1,894 3 days before the Southampton manifest. So the tremor-haunted soldier loses his income, buys 2 anonymous tickets, and leaves a trail of love letters that survived an attic fire. A pattern emerges like damp ink under ultraviolet. Ruined reputation, vanishing property rights, escape disguised as elopement, the Victorian dating rulebook weaponized as passport. A scrape of metal snaps you back. Your building's lift halts on your floor, though no call button glows. Footsteps pad down the hallway, slow, deliberate. You mute the laptop. The cursor blinks like a heartbeat in the dark. A letter slot whispers, and a single envelope slides across the wood. No postage, just those same initials. O pressed in wax the colour of dried roses. You stare, half expecting the paper to self-ignite like a secret too scandalous for daylight. Outside, Big Ben tolls again, but this time the chime feels closer, as if 2 centuries are collapsing into your corridor. You reach for the envelope. The wax cracks with a soft sigh, as though the seal has been holding its breath since Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. Inside, a single, ivory-tinted calling card and a square of folded onion skin paper. No address, no return, stamped just latent perfume, citrus and coal dust, the scent of train stations long dismantled. The card is embossed in silver script. Eudora Osprey, discreet inquiries, passage arrangements, Savile Row, London. On the back, a penciled notation. Weatherby, Whitworth file retrieved. Midnight vault, bring key. You flip to the onion skin. A map sketched in sepia ink traces familiar streets. Regent Street to Piccadilly, then dives underground, terminating at an X beneath Hanover Square. Tiny arrows mark service corridors, forgotten by Google Maps, but rumoured among urban explorers. Bricked up coal chutes, the skeleton of an abandoned pneumatic mail line. You exhale, fogging the lamplight. EO isn't a person. It's a firmer shadow travel agency for those who needed to vanish from Victorian society without leaving a blot on Debrett's. Passage. New identities. Even forged death notices Victorian witness protection. Sol de la carte. Heart thudding. You grab the laptop. Search. Eudora Osprey Savile Row. Nothing recent, but a 1,901 police ledger lists a raid for fraudulent passports and unchaperoned female transport. Charges mysteriously dropped. Another clipping. 1,923. Fire destroys basement archive. Casualties unreported. The firm disappears into soot, yet someone just slid their calling card under your door. A soft vibration. Your phone. Unknown number. 1 text coordinates that match the map's X and a timestamp. Tonight, 1:0 a.m. You glance at the clock. 12:11. Less than an hour to decide whether to chase ghosts through London's arterial tunnels. You open a drawer for practical courage. Torch, notebook, portable charger. But something heavier catches your Fingersa brass skeleton key you'd pocketed from the museum gift shop months ago. Replica of a Crystal Palace lock. Souvenir, yes, but its ornate bowl matches the outline inked beside Bring Key. Coincidence tightens into destiny. Rain has stopped. Outside, street lamps paint the slick pavement bronze. In their glow, you notice faint footprints drying on the hallway. Runner, whoever delivered the envelope, walked barefoot or in stockinged feet, toes pointed outward, like a dancer trained before women could vote. You slip the key and card into your coat. Map folded at heart level. Lock the flat. Piccadilly at 12:47 a.m. is a stage struck between axe omnibuses, replaced by garbage trucks, theatre posters, fluttering like exhausted fans. I keep to the curb, coat collar raised. The city's sodium glow paling the stars to rumour. Each footstep feels rehearsed, as if London itself expects this midnight audition. At Hanover Square, the map's ink comes alive. I spot the old ventilation grate Eudora sketched waist high, wrought iron, decorated with acanthus leaves blackened by a century of exhaust. The padlock is ancient, but snapped. Someone opened it minutes ago. I slip through, boots crunching on forgotten coal dust, and descend a narrow metal ladder that rings like cutlery with every rung. The air changes by degrease perfume of damp brick, a low thrum of utilities, distant district line rattle. My torch reveals a corridor tiled in Victorian cream and bottle green, edges chipped like bad teeth, stenciled in soot-blurred paint. Pneumatic Malone 1000, 900 psi keep clear. History's backstage. 30 yards in, an alcove appears. Iron door, oval window, gilt letters flaking off Osprey Company. Passage arrangements. The brass key slides home with indecent familiarity. Click, the lock gives, but the door refuses, wedged by time. I shoulder it once, twice. On the third push it, exhales a grave-releasing air it saved for me. Inside, a rotunda the size of a bandstand, walls lined with oak cabinetry, pigeonholes stuffed with brittle passports, steamship tickets, bundles of letters bound in ribbon, a library for disappearances. My breath ghosts in the torch beam as I approach the central desk. There lies an opened ledger dated April 3rd, 1894, the day before Weatherby sailed. Next to the entry, a fresh post-it note, 21st century neon against Edwardian leather. File pulled, Vault 3, EO. Before I can pass how a century-dead firm learned to love stationery, something clicks in the darkness, an old phonograph winding up. No. Footsteps on stone, deliberate, approaching from the passage I just emptied. I kill the torch. The rotunda falls into ink. My heart counts the distance. 12 meters. 8. A lantern blooms outside the doorframe, outlining a silhouette in period-perfect tailcoat and impossibly lace. Up boots. The figure pauses, as if reading the fresh scuff marks my shoulder left on the wood. Don't bother hiding, a voice says, calm as library hours. I straighten, pulse drumming. Who are you? I manage. The lantern tilts, exposing sharp cheekbones, a swirl of grey at the temple's more Victorian chemist, the midnight mugger. Caretaker, the stranger answers. I keep the files that history misfiled. Their accent is London, but varnished with boarding school polish. You broke into my flat. My voice echoes off the tile. Inconvenient, I know, but the Weatherby Whitworth dossier was requested. A gloved hand taps the neon post-it. And, when a request is stamped, urgent we oblige, even after a century of dormancy. I flick the torch back on. Oak panels glow. Dust drifts like dandruff from time's shoulders. Why me? Because you're the only living relative who's still looking, they say, examining me as if measuring a dowry. Everyone else settled for family myths. The word relative snaps like corset stays. My great-grandmother was a Weatherby rumour, said she jilted a suitor and vanished. Vault 3, I say, forcing calm. Where is it? The caretaker gestures to a corridor barred by a wrought-iron gate. Filigree W's form a lattice Whitworth, Weatherby, both? A brass dial lock waits for a code. Combination? I ask. They offer a card the size of a Victorian dance token. On one side, the outline of a hand, fingers numbered. On the other, 3 etiquette rules penned in looping ink. 1. Never remove gloves before being invited. 2. Speak no more than 12 words when first addressed. 3. Accept nothing you cannot return. Victorian dating cliff notes, they say. Translate them into numbers date. Hour. Sequence. You have 2 minutes. The vault seals at 1:30. The lantern clicks off in their palm. Darkness clamps shut. I inhale textbook memories. Debrett's 1890 edition glove etiquette enforced at debutante balls. Ladies permitted to unglove at supper. 8 p.m. The 8th hour past noon. Rule 12 words. Obvious. Rule 3 returnable gifts had to be under £1 sterling. The number 1, 8, 12, 1. I spin the dial. 8, 12, 1. Metal teeth clunk. The gate sighs inward, exhaling cold that smells of lilac sachets and soot. Efficient, the caretaker murmurs behind me. Good breeding. A narrow corridor stretches ahead, lined with waist-high pneumatic tubes, each capped by a crimson glass bulb that pulses faintly like heartbeats left on standby. At the end waits a door painted lead white, stenciled in oxblood. Vault 3. I step inside first, they follow, closing the gate. The door seals behind us with a velvet thud. muting even the city's subterranean hum. My torch plays across the chamber, octagonal, perhaps 30 feet across. Every wall a mosaic of walnut drawers labelled in Gilt Time's jewellery box. Floor tiles form a compass rose. In its centre stands a lectern draped in oil, black canvas. Vaults hold what families can't bury, the caretaker says, voice hushed. Weatherby left this one untended. I peel back the cloth. Resting atop the lectern is a brass cylinder the size of a hatbox. Star-shaped perforations stipple its sides. A crimson wax seal girdles the lid. WW return if undelivered. Marriage contract? I breathe. Or its escape clause, the caretaker replies, extending a bone-handled letter opener hilt first, the old gesture of safe offering. Rule 3 from the etiquette card flares in my brain. Accept nothing you cannot return. But I close my fingers around the handle. Some debts are unavoidable. The wax splits with a papery sigh. A scent of lilac and cold metal wafts out, as though someone bottled a drawing room's last breath. Inside, a vellum deed, neatly rolled, banded by ribbon, and a velvet pouch knotted tight. I unfurl the deed. Even under torchlight, the iron gall ink looks fresh. Transfer of Homewood House, Isle of Wight, in consideration of the union of Miss Eudora Weatherby and Mr. Thomas Whitworth, late of Calcutta. Across the Latin boilerplate, a diagonal slash of pencil screams, null, void. Below it, 4 frantic words. For her protection, TW, the caretaker's brow wrinkles. An annulment before vows? Only bribery, disease, or disgrace could move fathers that fast. Their gaze drops to the pouch. What did he sacrifice? I turn it over. Something hard thuds into my Palmer silver ring crowned with a single opal. In Victorian law, opals foretold ruin, yet this one glows sea, green, alive. I feel heat. Or is it imagination? A sudden rattle interrupts. Down the corridor, a crimson glass bulb strobes faster, throwing arterial light across the drawers. Pneumatic line just activated, the caretaker murmurs. Someone's sending documents here. Hiss. Thunk. The floor trembles. Can we reply? I ask. Only by revealing we're inside. Their gloved hand hovers over a brass lever near the door. Flight is safer. The hiss becomes a raw words hurtling through London's veins toward this very chamber. The basket jerks once more and settles. The crimson bulb dims to a pulsy heart that refuses to flatline. I exchange a glance with the caretaker. Could be a routine misroute, they whisper, though their pupils dilate like someone recalling shellfire. Or the Weatherby's last chess move, I answer, sliding the opal ring into my coat. Its warmth lingers, a pocket-sized fever. We approach the cylinder. Unlike the hatbox on the lectern, this canister is steel, military smooth, stamped with a date. 14 Feb, 1855, the very morning of Eudora's public debut. A second mark chills me. Return unopened upon scandal. Valentine's Day, the caretaker notes. Londoners called it proposal season. I thumb the lid, but they stop me. Wait! Victorian correspondence booby-trapped envelopes with powdered glass. Blindness was the mildest result. Is that myth or fact? Enough of both to scar an era. They produce a density probe. Tap the metal twice, listen. A hollow answer, no rattle. Safe, probably. Yet their gloves tighten. I twist. The lid pops, releasing a breath of Turk Island tobacco and something sweeter violets flattened between pages. Inside, a trifold letter wrapped around a ragged scrap of linen. A brown bloom stains the cloth centre. Blood? No darker, gummy, almost tar. I lift it. The caretaker flinches. Iodine poultice, they murmur. Standard field dressing for musket wounds are tropical ulcers. Thomas's twitch flashes in my mind. The note is unsigned, but handwriting curls exactly like the deed's null and void / Eudora. My fever grows. Surgeon warns of contagion, and worse, heredity. I withdraw, lest our future children inherit Calcutta's ghosts. Keep the ring, keep breathing. Burn this when decided. Heredity, contagion. He'd spared her by ruining himself. Lightning forks through the vault's stained glass transom, illuminating rows of drawers. Each one suddenly feels alive, bursting with unspoken exits from arranged hells. I refold the letter. So he wasn't a monster. He was a quarantine. The caretaker reaches for the linen, inspecting the stain. If that's Kala Azar or worse, London officials would have buried the story. Society couldn't stomach diseased romance. Another hiss rattles the line-second canister inbound. They know we opened it, I say. The caretaker's eyes flick to the exit lever. Protocol dictates evacuation. But protocol buried her, I argue, holding up the ring. The next canister slams into the receiving basket with the finality of a judge's gavel. Brass gears clack, locking it in Placino exit until it's dealt with. A hiss of released pressure exhales across our ankles. Warm, animal, almost pleading. Evacuation window just halved, the caretaker mutters, checking a pocket watch that glints like a nervous eye. When the mainspring hits 12, every door between here and the street will dead. Bolt. How long? 7 minutes. I rest a palm on the steel tube. Through the metal I can feel a faint vibration, as though whatever rides inside is still alive. If we walk out now, the Weatherbys rewrite history. Again. The caretaker's jaw works, grinding gears of duty against appetite for truth. At last they unhook a slim crowbar from their belt librarian-turned-locksmith. 4 minutes to read, 3 to run, not a second more. The lid protests but yields. Instead of paper, a stack of miniature wax cylinders, the kind used on Edison's newfangled phonograph nestles in cotton batting. Each is labelled in looping ink. I, Dowry Negotiations the Second. Chaperoned Excursion 3. Medical Consultation Qua. Night Before My Pulse Strips. Audio Diaries. Or Blackmail Originals, the caretaker corrects, producing a pocket phonograph no larger than a biscuit tin. Choose one. Medical consultation, I say, heart pushing blood like a telegraph key. The cylinder clicks into place. The needle settles. Static. Then a quivering baritone Thomas. Evidence of spleen enlargement. Intermittent fevers. Dr. Sullivan advises immediate withdrawal from the engagement. Suggests isolation, but bride's father refuses fears. Scandal eclipses, contagion. Another voice breaks in, stiff as starched linen. Mr. Weatherby, proceed with marriage. Public knows nothing of spleens. A cancelled wedding, however, metastasizes faster than any parasite. Thomas, again, strained. Then let the parasite be me. The recording ends in a scratch that sounds horribly like a cough. Thunder rumbles above ground, shaking dust from the ceiling. The caretaker's watch clicks louder 2 minutes. I swipe another cylinder at random night before and pocket it. We need proof. History can't swallow. You're smuggling evidence, they warn. Evidence of a woman's right to refuse infection. I tap the opal ring through fabric. Her escape clause deserves daylight. Alarms pop like kettle corn down the corridor doors, sealing in succession. The corridor yawns before USA ribcage of iron gates, snapping shut one after another. Each clang ricochets off the marble like a ticking heart. We sprint, the caretaker's coattails a frantic metronome, my own breaths corseted by panic. North stair, they shout. Service lift still runs on a separate circuit. We veer left. Between the filing cabinets, I glimpse portraits of long-dead debutantes. Their eyes aflutter in frozen modesty, judging our indecency at running indoors. A gate slams behind us. Dust billows like Victorian face powder. 30 seconds, the caretaker warns. Their pocket watch emits a harsh, whining alarm for horologists alone. We reach the service lift. Wrought iron cage, hand crank, no automation. A single bulb flickers above, the same fevered crimson as the pneumatic warning light. I leap inside. The caretaker follows, slamming the gate. I'll crank, I say, grabbing the wheel. Muscles burn, chains groan, the lift inches upward. Below, floodlights ignite the closed corridor in antiseptic white. A silhouette appears, broad-shouldered, top-hatted, carrying something long and glinting. Who? I gasp. Archive enforcement, the caretaker guesses. They guard reputations, not lives. The figure studies the sealed gate, then kneels. A hiss, portable torch, magnesium bright. He's cutting through. Faster, the caretaker pleads. 3 floors up, the lift aligns with a mezzanine lined by taxidermy swans' Victorian wedding symbols. I shove the gate aside, we tumble out. The lift continues upward, decoy on autopilot. We duck behind a velvet curtain. Through latticework, I watch the torchman step into the rising cage empty. His head snaps upward, sensing the ruse. He yanks the crank, reversing direction. He'll be here in under a minute, I whisper. Reading room B, the caretaker decides. Has a chute to the alley. We dash again, skirting glass cases of scandal-sealed documents. Each nameplate, Blythe, Farnham, Weatherby feels like a gravestone. Room B's oak door stands ajar. Inside, gas sconces sputter, illuminating a mahogany table set for tea. 2 cups steam as if hosts expect us. Between them, a single envelope bears my name in copperplate. My spine prickles. How could they? No time, the caretaker interrupts, eyeing the rear wall. Chute levers jammed. I need both hands. I approach the envelope. Wax seal. A split opal stamped with the Weatherby crest. I break it. Inside, a carte de visite photograph Eudora, radiant, unsmiling, holding today's newspaper. My fingertips go numb. The photograph is matte, new, impossible Eudora Weatherby in a silk day dress. Today's Times folded beneath her gloved hand. The headline blares. Archive security breach suspected. She stares straight through the camera, straight through a sentry, straight at me. Behind me, metal protests. The torchman has reached the mezzanine. Sparks spit across the corridor like angry fireflies. The caretaker pries at the rusted chute lever with a silver letter opener. Whatever love note they left you, read it later. There's more, I whisper, sliding a second item from the envelope. A thin phonograph cylinder, unlabelled but warm as if recently played. A post-it, anachronistic neon against parchment, clings to its rim, for your ears only. The past still breathes. My pulse stutters. They knew we'd come here. They're steering us. Then let's jump tracks. With a final grunt, the caretaker wrenches the lever. The chute mouth yawns open, exhaling dust and coal, cool air. 20-foot drop, maybe more, vanishing into black. Boot steps close in. The torchman's silhouette fills the doorway, faceless beneath the top hat. Blade-thin arc lamp raised like a guillotine. Hand over the cylinders, he says, voice calm as museum air. History prefers its absences. I edge toward the chute. She's alive, I say, holding up the photo. Tell me how. Not alive, he corrects, stepping forward. Observed, continuously. The caretaker hurls the lever bar. It clangs off his lamp, shattering glass. Darkness swallows the room except for the ember of his cutting torch. Jump! The caretaker shouts, already sliding feet, first into the chute. I clutch the cylinder and the photo, then plunge after. Gravity sews my scream shut. Wooden panels whip past. Static sparks pop in my ears. 50 years of dust scours my coat. A reverse hourglass counting down to pavement. I land in a heap of straw. The caretaker beside me, coughing. We're in a narrow carriage bay lit by street lamp glow filtering through wagon slats. Horse blankets muffle city noise. It smells of linseed and old barley. Above, the chute lid slams locked. Muffled footsteps pace searching. The caretaker finds a door latch and pushes. Outside, drizzle slicks a cobblestone alley. A single hansom cab waits, oil lanterns already trimmed, driver hidden in shadow. Painted on the cab's door in curling gilt, a split opal, identical to the seal. The driver tips his hat, revealing nothing but the gleam of engineer goggles. Evening, he says. Rain freckles the cab's lacquered roof like hurried Morse code. I hesitate, cylinder slick in my fist, but the caretaker has already climbed inside. The driver watches, goggles catching alley light, twin moons of polished brass. Destination? I ask, half daring him to explain. He tugs the reins. "Where the story rewrote itself," he answers, voice muffled by scarf. The cab jolts forward before I can protest. Inside, red velvet, smelling faintly of camphor and rosa tar. A brass speaking tube hangs beside the seat. I grip it. "Why should we trust you?" his reply echoes up the tube. "Because Miss Weatherby paid one fare in advance across 3 different centuries." The caretaker exhales a brittle laugh. "Temporal escrow." I'd hoped it was a myth. Street lamps blur into comet tails outside the rain-smeared window as we rattle toward the river. I roll the unlabelled cylinder between my palms. If Eudora arranged this, she'd want us to listen. I locate the cab's miniature phonographer travel model bolted under the seat, humming with latent electricity. The caretaker hesitates, then nods. I slide the cylinder on. The needle touches down with a hiss like frying rain. A woman's voice, low but steady. "If you are hearing this, I remain under observation protocol. Opal." The archive believes it has me boxed in folios of etiquette. They forget the margins. A pause. Find the ledger marked dowry adjustments. 1,855. Inside lies the map to the breach. The recording cracks, continues. But beware the man with borrowed time. His heartbeat isn't in his chest. Needle lifts, silence floods back. I stare at the caretaker. Borrowed time? He looks grim. Chronometric graphs there were experiments. Gave certain agents spare moments. His gaze drifts to the alley behind us. That torchman could rewind seconds the way we flip pages. Thunder growls over the Thames. The cab creaks onto a bridge. Midspan, the driver pulls the horse to a halt. Fog cloaks the riverbanks, thick as theatre curtains. "End of the line," he calls, hopping down. He opens our door, gestures toward an iron watergate set into the embankment wall. On its rusted surface, the split opal sigil, glowing faintly with phosphorescent paint. "The ledger waits beyond," he says. "My meter stops here." He offers a small lantern, wick already lit. One warning. Once inside, you'll have only as much time as the flame lasts. The archive cannot rewind what it never lit. I take the lantern, its warmth crawls up my wrist. The iron watergate yawns open on silent hinges, exhaling a brackish breath from the tunnel beyond. I step first, lantern held high. The caretaker follows, sealing the gate behind us with a dull clank that feels uncomfortably like a casket lid. Moist brick arches funnel us downward. Each footfall splashes, echoing forward until it returns, warped, like someone pacing ahead. River fog seeps through mortar seams, swirling in the lantern glow as if eager to eavesdrop. Painted arrow sopal halves pointing left appear at irregular intervals. Their phosphorescence pulses in sync with my heartbeat, or perhaps with the flame's tremor. "Eudora mapped this herself," the caretaker murmurs, tracing one glowing curve. "Ingenious. Victorian ladies weren't allowed to sign contracts, but they could certainly sign walls." We round a bend and enter a vaulted chamber ribbed with cast iron beams. Rank shelves line the walls. Account books stacked like tombstones, every spine stamped dowry adjustments. 1,855. Thousands of them. The caretaker whistles. An entire cemetery of fortunes and futures. I pull a random ledger, blow dust, open it blank. Another blank. A third reveals only a single sentence, scrawled across the middle page in walnut ink. "Love is a ledger kept in disappearing ink." Cold prickles chase up my arms. "Are we too late?" "Look for anomalies," he says, scanning spines with librarian speed. "Eudora said inside lies the map. Could be invisible, could be..." He stops. One ledger bears a fresh silk ribbon, deep opal blue, tied in a bow no bigger than a corsage. I slip it free and open the book. Instead of pages, the interior houses a brass and glass timepiece, no larger than a locket. Gears exposed, mainspring ticking backward. Beneath it, a folded card reads, "Calibration key, set to the moment the corset came undone." Before I can pass that, the tunnel lights with a sudden orange glare. Far end of the chamber, the torchman arc lamp now replaced by a pocket inferno. Sparks halo his silhouette as he strides forward, water hissing off his boots. The caretaker snaps the ledger shut. He can't touch the mechanism, it's phase sensitive. "How do we leave?" I hiss. The only exit behind us is the gate he'd surely sealed after following. "We don't leave," the caretaker says, snatching the locket clock and pressing it into my palm. We reset. He spins the tiny crown until the hands align on one numeral, 7. The clock's tick reverses, then stops. Time splits like silk under a tailor's knife. The torchman's boots hang in mid-stride, sparks poised in the air like copper fireflies. Droplets that were tumbling from the vaulted ceiling now, hoverglass beads on unseen strings. Even the lantern flame freezes, its tongue of light, a pinned butterfly. Only the little locket clock in my fist still moves, gears gliding in stately reverse. "Moment the 7, the caretaker whispers. His voice sounds muffled, as if forced through layers of velvet. 7th hour of the 7th day. That's when Eudora's corset finally gave her room to breathe. The chamber around us dissolves. Brick bleeds into damask wallpaper. Iron beams shrink into mahogany rafters. The sour river rot sweetens into lavender sachets. I'm standing in a candlelit boudoir, morning sun banded by lace curtains. A corset white coutil, whalebone stayshangs over a dressing chair like a shed exoskeleton. Footsteps approach. I duck behind a screen just as a younger Eudora Weatherby enters, cheeks flushed from haste. She shuts the door, leans against it, palms pressed to her sternum as though holding her heart inside. Then, with trembling fingers, she reaches into the corset's inner lining and extracts a narrow parchment roll. The map. The caretaker manifests beside me, half transparent, body stitched together by glimmers of the tunnel we left behind. "We have maybe 90 real-world seconds," he warns. "Take it before she hides it in the dowry ledgers." But that would change her timeline. "Only if she sees you." Eudora crosses to the vanity, unrolls the parchment, and reads. Her lips shape silent words. "Love is a ledger kept in disappearing ink." She smiles brief, conspiratorial, and folds the map again. When she turns toward the bureau drawer, I move. Sound doesn't exist in this pocket of borrowed time. My boots glide over parquet like ghosts on skates. I slip the parchment from her loosening fingers an instant before it vanishes into the drawer. For a heartbeat, we stand almost touching her, unaware of the absence, me vibrating with the theft. She closes the drawer on empty air and exhales, satisfied. The caretaker snaps his watch shut. "Temporal rubber band is tightening," he says. Back to the breach. The boudoir peels away in ribbons of wallpaper and candle smoke, revealing once more the brick-ribbed ledger vault. Time surges forward. Sparks fall. Droplets splash. The torchman's boots crash onto the wet flagstones. But my hand is no longer empty.